Straight ahead, state of the Senate race. A new poll shows just how close the battle for the U.S. Senate is in Texas between Senator Ted Cruz and Congressman Colin Allred. And the pollster tells us whether there's still movement in the race. Texas state of mind. We're listening to Texans as Jason Allen travels the state to hear what they're saying about the upcoming election. And election impact, why Hispanic leaders in North Texas believe this is the year the Latino vote could tip the results in some key states and national races. Good Sunday morning to you. I'm Jack Fink. Get your fix for Texas politics. Eye on Politics starts now. Hello and welcome to Eye on Politics. I hope you're having a great weekend. Early voting starts tomorrow in Texas, and all eyes are on the Texas Senate race between two-term Republican incumbent Senator Ted Cruz and his Democratic challenger, Congressman Colin Allred of Dallas. A new poll for the Senate race by the Texas Politics Project at UT Austin shows Cruz leading Allred by 7 percentage points, 51% to 44%. In the presidential race, the same poll shows former President Donald Trump leading Vice President Kamala Harris by 5 percentage points, 51% to 46%. We spoke with Joshua Blank, research director of the Texas Politics Project, and I asked him when candidates reach 50%, if that means they'll likely win.
Well, it certainly helps, first and foremost. And ultimately, as an incumbent candidate, that 50% number is really the number you're looking for. I mean, truthfully, as any candidate, that's the percentage you're looking for. But especially as an incumbent, I think, throughout the year leading up to the election, when you're looking at polling, one of the things you first notice is whether or not an incumbent begins the race above or below 50%, because it gives you an indication of whether or not there is a majority of the electorate that is, at the very least, reticent about reelecting that candidate. I tend to be more of the belief that we're actually returning more to a normal state of affairs that people aren't necessarily as used to in Texas, which is a relatively close race, but not necessarily one in which you can expect a Democrat every election cycle to come within 2 points, as Beto O'Rourke did, back in 2018. So one thing I think is as you're getting closer to the election, more voters are paying attention. The campaigns are really starting to spend their money and target their mobilization efforts. You're starting to see the Republican advantage grow a little bit because the Republicans have an advantage.
Do you think the debate will have any impact on the outcome of the race?
I think it's pretty unlikely. And again, at this point in the race, we're really talking about the impact on margins, very, very small percentages of voters. I think, ultimately, it probably helped Cruz a little bit more than it helped Allred, simply because Cruz is such a polished debater. He's been in the Senate as long as he has, and he really does have an ability to go out there and, stylistically, but also functionally remind the electorate, a majority of whom have been Republican in most elections, that regardless of what Colin Allred says, he is a Democrat and he is likely to vote with the Democrats on most major issues. And I think that was a strong, sort of consistent message for Cruz. And while I think Allred did a fairly good job, and if anything, I would say by my recollection, probably a better job than O'Rourke did in 2018 in his debates, he was much more on message, but he didn't really create the sort of viral moment that I think would have pushed the debate out to a wider audience.
Do you think that the race is largely set, or do you think that there is going to be some movement? Because the poll was conducted earlier this month before this week's debate.
There's potential for very little movement, and that's because of what voters tell us. Voters tell us that their minds are made up. There's only a very small slice of the electorate that remains likely to vote and yet unwilling to express a preference or willing to say that they're likely to change their mind at this point.
The Senate candidates squared off in Dallas last week in their one and only debate, and it was combative. The controversy over transgender athletes playing high school and college sports has erupted as an issue in the past week. Both Cruz and Allred have argued about it on their TV commercials, and they were asked about this issue.
All of a sudden, and this is a good one, all of a sudden, the protector of women and girls is going to be Senator Cruz, who thinks it's perfectly reasonable that if a girl is raped by a relative of hers, a victim of incest, that she should be forced to carry that child to term and give birth to it. You think that's perfectly reasonable, but now you're going to set yourself up as a protector of women and girls? It's laughable. And listen, he's trying to distract you.
There was a bill. It was a very simple bill. It was narrowly defined. It was protecting women and girls' sports. He voted no. The only issue on that bill was whether biological boys should compete against our daughters. That's not fair. Congressman Allred was an NFL linebacker. It is not fair for a man to compete against women.
Cruz and Allred also butted heads over the abortion rights issue. The congressman has featured in his campaign women who had troubled pregnancies and had to leave Texas to get an abortion because of the state's near ban on the procedure. Allred blames Cruz for the state law and supports restoring nationwide protections under Roe v. Wade. Cruz criticized Allred's past votes on the issue and supports leaving abortion up to each state. The senator has not answered the question directly whether he personally supports the state's law.
I support the protections and the restrictions under Roe. But Senator Cruz just called himself pro-life. You're not. You're not pro-life. It's not pro-life to deny women care so long that they can't have children anymore. It's not pro-life to force a victim of rape to carry their rapist's baby.
Congressman Allred has voted to tell you, a mother at home, you have no right to know if your daughter's getting an abortion. That's an extreme position. And I can tell you the overwhelming majority of Texans do not agree with Congressman Allred's extreme position against parental rights, against the rights of a mom and dad to be with their daughter in a horrific and challenging time.
When it comes to border security, Allred called out Cruz for helping to kill a bipartisan bill developed in the Senate to toughen asylum laws and provide more agents and technology on the border. Cruz has said the bill wasn't strong enough and that Allred has repeatedly voted against the border wall.
Colin Allred is Kamala Harris. Their records are the same. I've served with both of them. They voted in favor of open borders over and over and over again, and now they are desperately trying to hide that from the voters.
We had a bill. This is a pattern. He talks tough, but he never shows up. We have a phrase for this in Texas: all hat and no cattle. That's what Senator Cruz is. 6 more years of this? Come on.
Allred repeatedly said that Cruz only cares about himself, not the state, while Cruz focused on Allred's record, saying what he says and how he votes are very different. Now to the presidential race and our weekly look at the 7 battleground states, and we've seen some movement in the Real Clear Politics average of polls since last week. Former President Donald Trump has a very small lead in every state. In Arizona, Trump has his biggest lead over Vice President Kamala Harris, even though it's still razor thin. 1.4 percentage points, which is up from last week. In Nevada, Trump is ahead now by 0.5 percentage point, which is different from last week when Harris led by 1 percentage point. In Georgia, Trump leads by 0.9 percentage points, which is about the same as last week. There's also been a change in Wisconsin, where Trump now has the slightest edge possible, just 0.1 percentage points. In Michigan, the former president got a slight bump from last week and is ahead by 0.9 percentage points. He's also leading in Pennsylvania by 0.5 percentage point, which is a little higher than last week. And in North Carolina, Trump is ahead by 1 percentage point over Vice President Harris. As we said, early voting begins tomorrow and runs through November 1st. In Dallas, Tarrant, and Colin counties during the first week through this Friday, the hours are 8 a.m. until 5 p.m. But in Denton County, the hours are 7 a.m. until 7 p.m. But check the hours regarding the weekends in these counties, and of course during the weekend on the weekends in the surrounding counties. Sarah Jenkins tells you what you need to have when you cast your ballot in this week's brief.
You will be asked to show a photo ID to vote in Texas. Acceptable forms include a Texas driver's license, a state election ID certificate or state personal ID card, a Texas handgun license or military ID with photograph, a citizenship certificate with photo, or a U.S. passport. If you don't have an ID and cannot obtain one due to what the state calls, quote, a reasonable impediment, you'll need to sign a sworn statement and present an acceptable form like a certified birth certificate, a valid voter registration certificate, or a current utility bill, government check, bank statement, or paycheck or government document with your name and address. Then, election officials will determine if all requirements are satisfied. If you have an acceptable form of ID but did not bring it with you, you can vote provisionally and will have 6 days to present an acceptable form of photo identification to the county voter registrar. If you meet all these requirements and are eligible to vote, you may vote in the 2024 general election.
Coming up, the impact of the Latino vote in Texas this year when Eye on Politics comes right back. Welcome back to Eye on Politics. Now to the impact of the Latino vote in Texas this election day. For Hispanic Heritage Month, we recently sat down with 3 Latino leaders to talk about the issues resonating with voters in their communities. And they include the economy, education, and specifically school choice, and education savings accounts providing taxpayer money so some students can go to private school. We spoke with Democratic State Representative Ana Maria Ramos of Dallas, former Dallas County Republican Party Vice Chair and now Precinct Chair Tina Aviles, and former Republican State Representative Jason Villalba of Dallas, who's now an independent and chairman of the board of the Texas Hispanic Policy Foundation. This year, it's estimated more than 36 million Latinos nationwide are eligible to vote, the highest number yet. So will they turn out?
I think when you look at the growing population, the expectation is that Latinos are going to comprise about 15% of the vote nationally, and that's huge. And the current estimate that I'm seeing is that 1 in 4 voters nationally in this Latino group are going to be first-time voters. So I think that is going to be key.
And Jason?
For so many years, we've been talking about the Latino population as the sleeping giant. What we've seen in the last few cycles is the sleeping giant is awake, and they're starting to vote in large numbers, in numbers that are decisive. In Texas,
I think there has been a resurgence of excitement in the current presidential candidate, Kamala Harris, being a daughter of immigrants, and Latinos can really relate to that. One of the best gifts is the Republican candidate, Donald Trump, right, and his Project 2025 and his anti-immigrant rhetoric, and he is targeting Latino communities nationwide.
You brought up a point there about former President Donald Trump, but we've also seen inroads that the Republicans have made specifically in South Texas. And Jason, your firm, the Texas Hispanic Policy Foundation, you were talking a little bit about your poll, but talk to me about this, and I'll get everybody's input.
we've certainly seen some trends in South Texas and really around the country where Hispanics are no longer beholden to one party. Now, this started in Texas in 2016, where more Hispanics voted for Trump than had voted for other Republicans who had run in Texas. Republicans came into the state of Texas and they said, we're going to focus on jobs, and we're going to focus on making sure that we have an oil and gas economy, and we're going to make sure that we protect the first responders, policemen. Whereas on the other side of that coin, you saw some green economy type language, some ban the blue or the defund the police, and those messages did not resonate in South Texas.
When you take this new kind of conservatism that's blooming amongst the young people, mix it with the policies and how they've seen their parents struggle through, or they themselves are struggling through, the economic policies of a Biden-Harris administration that's been in charge of things like the economy and the border and immigration for these past 3.5 years. And they compare that to what was going on and how they were living under a Trump administration. I think we're going to see a continued shift.
The border, it's not really one of the top issues. Immigration is not really one of the top issues Latinos really talk about. It is the economy, it is the jobs, it is the opportunity. Families are really concerned about not only the economy, but education, whether their children will be educated, whether the state, the government will invest in their children's education. And when you talk to an immigrant family, the hope, the American dream lies in their child. There lies in the child in the future that they came to this country for. But when we attack education, when we attack public education, where the majority of students in public education in Texas are Latino, I mean, what we see our party here in Texas trying to do now is dismantle the public education system.
one of the biggest things that we're seeing rising up here in Texas is that hope lies in opening up and freeing the education and freeing parents to do what's best for their children when it comes to education, and opening up things like educational savings accounts where we can see, because we have data from states like Florida and how that made a difference in the Hispanic population, and from other states.
The truth is, an education savings account, you need to have a Social Security number to even access one of those. And 77% of the economically disenfranchised children in the public school system in the state of Texas are Latino. So that is not a path, it's a bridge that's going to be accessible to them.
I think Representative Ramos and Tina have really crystallized the #1 issue before the Texas legislature beginning in January of 2025, right? This is the #1 agenda item for Governor Abbott, and it's one of the #1 issues for the Democrat caucus as well, to go back and forth on this. Are they willing to accept that public tax dollars that would go to their schools be sent to other people for an $8,000 stipend? Or do they want to have that choice that Tina talks about, to take that $8,000 and send their kids to a local Catholic school, right? And that is where the issue that's what it boils down to. Where will Latino families land on that question? It's a really good question.
We had a really great conversation, and you can watch all of it on our website, cbsnewstexas.com. Go to the Eye on Politics section and click on Jack Fink Interviews. Coming up, the Texas State of Mind. We're traveling the state and listening to what Texans are saying about the election when Eye on Politics returns. Now to our series, The Texas State of Mind. CBS News Texas is traveling across the state, listening to voters about the election and the issues that matter most. Jason Allen takes us on the road to the High Plains in the Texas Panhandle.
It is so empty out here.
We're on the road to a place the movie Bernie once described as the part of Texas a lot of Texans seem to leave out.
Of course, I left out the Panhandle, and a lot of people do, but Carthage.
Cotton fields and cattle ranches weren't going to help us, so we headed to Amarillo and the 29th annual Original Harley Party. Now, this will probably come as a shock, but I am not a biker.
Do you think I could pull off being a biker?
Sure.
Really?
It don't matter what you look like.
I have a lot of doubt.
You can do it.
You're the first person to tell me that, so maybe.
We'll go hook you up with the best of pair of chaps.
Thankfully, bikers will let just about anybody join the party.
Could I pull one of these off?
Yeah. Whatever.
Which one do you think?
There you go. Too big.
Too tight.
Or too little.
Unless it's someone from the political party they don't belong to.
Is there anything that the other side you think does okay?
I mean, there probably is, but I can't think of it off the top of my head.
So who do people in the Panhandle think can't do anything wrong?
My kids and grandkids. Hispanics are very, very close to my family. We got Corbin, we got Court.
Mostly just my family.
Preston, Colin, Levi.
Big families, and not that big of a surprise. What I wanted to know, though, is what's important to those families right now.
Everybody's kind of like on edge, don't know what to do.
Are they?
I think so. I think so.
And you mean just in the way like they're not sure if they want to spend money or
Yeah, like they think about it twice. Yeah. Like they think about it. If they just bought a house with an 8% interest rate, you know, everything's gone up.
And they need to get rid of all the drugs and the crime and all that stuff.
Is that a problem?
Oh, bad.
Is it?
Yeah.
Which one's worse, the drugs or the crime?
The drugs. A lot of druggies walk around homeless.
I'm 68 years old. I'm retired. I'm drawn, so I just started drawing Social Security at 66 and a quarter.
But you're still working. You have to be working?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, with the economy the way it is, my Social Security and her Social Security is not enough to live on.
I think it's all economic too, you know. If we can get bigger factories or bigger something here, people will work more and get off that street, you know. And make things better for the community.
Or making things like you do.
Yeah,
I mean, you're doing it on a small scale.
Yeah, don't ship it from China, you know.
Who's going to keep my tax rate the lowest? People are thinking about that and they're voting that way.
High Plains native Alex Driggers and a reporter at the Lubbock Avalanche Journal confirmed we were on the right track of what people here value.
I think about people's value systems, their beliefs, their faith. People like, you know, Joe that live in Muleshoe. You know, he doesn't make a lot of money. He lives a comfortable life. It's pretty simple. He knows his neighbors, goes to church every Sunday, he never misses.
I want there to be God in our schools.
Yeah.
I don't want there to be my grandkids to be questioned on if they're a girl or a boy.
Yep, their values are big, and so is the uncertainty anyone will protect them.
What's going to happen?
Yeah. Would there be a big change?
Right.
I mean, we're to that point, right?
Yeah,
People in either party kind of wonder, like, is my party actually going to be able to do anything?
Right. I know. Like what's going to happen?
Do you feel this accurately portrays how you feel about the election and voting going into the next few months?
In all honesty, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Neither one sounds good enough for me.
It's the first time I've seen that shirt. That's all for Eye on Politics this week. I'm Jack Fink. I am listening, and we are listening at CBS News Texas. Thanks for watching, and I hope to see you again next week. Remember, early voting starts tomorrow. From all of us here, have a great weekend.